Hello there again. I decided to start learning GitHub Actions, and I guess there isn't a better way to start learning something in IT than reading at the documentation. So although it won't be as entertaining as creating a tutorial on how to learn GitHub and Actions, I'll be just doing the boring stuff and try to go through the whole documentation prepared. Let's start this and let's just read the articles provided here on GitHub Docs and use the examples if there will be any and experiment with them on our GitHub accounts. So let's go to the overview. If we open sidebar, there's quite a lot of articles written on GitHub Actions, so I'll be just reading them and commenting on those. Hope you'll enjoy if you want to spend some time with me. So, in overview, just let me check if I can. I'm just gonna move this. I'm using our extra wide monitor, so I'm just gonna move this window in front of me so it will be easier for me to read, although there's no visual difference in the video. So let's go with the overview. Understanding GitHub Actions. Learn the basics of GitHub Actions, including core concepts and essential terminology. And I believe that understanding the core concept and the terminology is one of the most important things, because you want to communicate exactly what you have in mind when you'll be discussing ideas or problems regarding some actions. So you want to know and you want to express yourself correctly. If you want to say that something isn't working in a specific workflow, job or step, you have different things in mind. So learning the core concepts and terminology is essential. Okay, overview. GitHub Actions is a continuous integration and continuous delivery CICD platform that allows you to automate your build, test and deployment pipeline. You can create workflows that build and test every pull request to your repository or deploy merge pull requests to production. GitHub Actions goes beyond just DevOps and lets you run workflows when other events happen in your repository. For example, you can run a workflow to automatically add the appropriate labels whenever someone creates a new issue in your repository. GitHub provides Linux, Windows and macOS virtual machines to run your workflows, or you can host your own self-hosted runners in your own data center or cloud infrastructure. So in general, GitHub Actions will be our CICD tool. In short, continuous integration CI will be this part. You can create a workflow, so actions, automatic actions that can be taken by the system when you create an issue or create a pull request. So you want to integrate all your code changes automatically, and continuous delivery or deployment will be right here when you want to deploy the newly integrated code to your production environment or other environments. So connect continuous integration with your code and making issues, pull requests in repository, while continuous delivery we should be connected with the deployment to any environment depending on your process you have in your production workload, let's say. Let's keep it that way. Okay, let's discuss the components of GitHub Actions. You can configure GitHub Action workflow to be triggered when an event occurs in your repository, such as pull request being open or an issue being created. So events on opening pull request or issues, it will trigger some automated actions to integrate the code changes So for example, test them or any other stuff. Your workflow contains one or more jobs which can run in sequential order in parallel. Each job will run inside its own virtual machine runner or inside a container and has one or more steps that either run a script that you define or run an action, which is a reusable extension that simplifies your workflow. So I believe that's the most important graph to understand all the concepts. In general, GitHub Actions allows us to create a workflows which will be triggered by events. So for continuous integrations, we will have the pull request events or opening an issue events or any other events. And those events will start triggering the workflows, and in each workflow we will define a job which will be either run sequentially or in parallel on a runner, and a runner won't be nothing more than a virtual machine, so a part of computer which will be someone's GitHub's part of a computer which will be delegated to run some jobs. And you can have multiple jobs. Each job will have its own runner, which will be either virtual machine or container, and each job will have its steps defined by the developer to do on that machine. Okay, so let's go to the official definition of the workflows. A workflow is a configurable automated process that will run one or more jobs. Workflows are defined by a YAML file checked in your repository and will run whether triggered by an event in your repository, or they can be triggered manually or at a defined schedule. So again, this is we are repeating ourselves. So we have a workflow which will be triggered by an event, and it will run the jobs, the automated task as defined in your YAML files. So workflows are defined in GitHub Workflows directory in a repository. So if you start a repository, you need to create a directory GitHub and workflows in which you will have all the definitions and the tasks to do. A repository can have multiple workflows, each of which can perform a different set of tasks, such as building and testing pull requests, deploying your application every time a release is created, adding a label whenever a new issue is open. Oh, excuse me for that. You can reference a workflow within another workflow. For more information, check the other documentation. So we'll be going probably through the other documentation later, but in general, yeah, we can define workflow as automated process which can do the continuous integration tasks, like triggering some tasks for developers to, for example, review the code on pull requests, or running some tests before allowing pull requests, and the continuous delivery. So for deploying the code every time a release is created. So yeah. So maybe we would like to provide a tag or a label to newly deployed code or any other tasks. Maybe our application consists of multiple apps which needs to be deployed in a sequence, so we can also automate those deployments to run in separate jobs in parallel or in sequence and be deployed automatically. Okay, let's go to the events. An event is a specific activity in a repository that triggers a workflow run. For example, an activity can originate from GitHub when someone creates a pull request, opens an issue, or pushes a commit to a repository. You can also trigger a workflow to run on a schedule by posting to a REST API or manually. And we have also a list of events which can trigger the workflow, but we will probably review the available events later. Okay, let's go to the jobs. Each workflow consists of jobs which will be run off on separate runner, so it will be a virtual machine with Linux or other operating system. So the definition of job. A job is a set of steps in a workflow that is executed on the same runner. Each step is either a shell script that will be executed or an action that will be run. Steps are executed in order and are dependent on each other. Since each step is executed on the same runner, you can share data from one step to another. For example, you can have a step that builds your application followed by a step that tests the application that was built. So when I was first reading it, I was wondering how can I remember what is action. So if you come from Jenkins, for you an action would be nothing more than a plugin, at least in my understanding. So you download an action, and action would allow you to trigger some automated task which was already predefined. So yeah, although it's named GitHub Actions, the actions won't be nothing more than a set of instructions or some code that will allow to extend the workflow functionality to run some automated work. So you can just, if you have some CICD experience and you know what is Jenkins, you can treat action as a plugin. Okay, let's go further. You can configure a job's dependencies with their jobs by default. Jobs have no dependencies and run in parallel. When a job takes a dependency on another job, it waits for the dependent job to complete before running. For example, you might configure multiple build jobs for different architectures without any job dependencies and a packaging job that depends on those builds. The build jobs run in parallel, and once they complete successfully, the packaging jobs run. So yeah, in each of job we can define steps for a specific jobs, and we can also schedule our jobs or make a dependency graph out of jobs, which job needs to run after successful end of a previous job. Okay, that's the correct way to say it. And the definition of action. So not my plugin understanding, but the official definition of actions. An action is a custom application for the GitHub Actions platform that performs a complex but frequently repeated tasks. Use an action to help reduce the amount of repetitive code that you write in your workflow files. An action can pull your Git repository from GitHub, set up the correct toolchain for your built environments, or set up the authentication to your cloud provider. You can write your own actions, or you can find actions to use in your workflows in the GitHub marketplace. So yeah, actions allow us to just automate some repetitive tasks, and those are treated as custom applications. The definition of runner. A runner is a server that runs your workflows when they're triggered. Each runner can run a single job at a time. GitHub provides Ubuntu Linux, Microsoft Windows and macOS runners to run your workflows. Each workflow run executes in a fresh, newly provisioned virtual machine. So we are runner. So each job will have its own runner, and we can provide one of the operating systems or the runners on which we want to run the automated task. GitHub also offers larger runners which are available in larger configuration. For more information using larger runners. If you need a different operating system or require specific hardware configuration, you can host your own runners. So yeah, there's an option to also create your own runners, which gives you more configuration abilities. So next steps. Those are links to some interesting topics which you would like to go, but instead of that I'll be just going article after article, read the documentation as is, and copy the examples which we'll find in each article. So okay, that will be enough for today's video, for the introduction. In the next step I will read the GitHub Actions continuous integration documentation, article actually, and yeah, I'll see you there in the next video. Bye.